How's it going? Ryan here at etrailer.com. Today on our 2017 Buick Envision, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Direct Connect baseplate kit with removable arms. Now right off the bat, our baseplate is going to be somewhat visible because we do have to cut openings in our grill for all of our components to come through. But the upside to that, and one thing I like about this baseplate, is that it's already going to have bracketry pre-attached to set up our breakaway switch as well as our 6-way wiring. And that's really convenient because everything's going to look a lot more symmetrical and you're not going to have to worry about customizing bracketry to get everything mounted. Now the purpose of the base plate is to provide us with a solid connection point. That way we can connect our tow bar to the base plate and the tow bar to the motorhome. Now keep in mind, our base plate is going to be one of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Buick. The other 4 are going to include diode wiring, a braking system, a tow bar, and safety cables. Now what's nice about this base plate, since it does have removable arms, you can quickly hook up or disconnect. And the way these are going to work is you're going to have a pin here, and that's eventually going to connect into this opening here in the base plate. So when we put it in, push it all the way in place, turn it, and that pin will lock into place. And it's going to work the same way over on the other side. Now the base plate is going to be compatible with most Roadmaster tow bars, and there are a variety of different options available that you could choose from. One of my personal favorites is the Roadmaster Nighthawk. And we're also going to have an attachment point on each side here, and that's going to be for our safety cables. Now I like how these don't come out real far, but they come out enough where everything's going to be really easy to get hooked up and disconnected. For example, our typical safety cable connector here goes on and comes off very easily. So overall, it's going to provide us with a very reliable and solid connection point to help us flat tow our Envision down the road safely. And as a bonus, we're not going to have to sacrifice the clean look of the front of our Buick. Now when it comes to the installation, it is going to take a little bit of time, and the majority of that time spent will be taking the front of our fascia off. That's because there is quite a few fasteners, but none of them are really difficult to get to or anything like that. And I'll go ahead and show you some tricks along the way to make it go a little easier and faster. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put it on together now. To begin our installation, I went ahead and popped the hood, and now we're going to remove this plastic radiator cover. The cover is going to be held in place by 9 push pin fasteners, just like this. And to get these out, you can use a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver. Kind of pry underneath the head of it. Then you're able to lift it up. And then you can kind of work that base out to get it completely removed. So I'm going to use that same process to get the rest of them out. Once all of them are removed, we can simply just lift up on it and set it to the side. Now we're going to have 6 T15 screws along the front edge of our grill that we're going to take out. So I'll just use that T15 Torx bit socket to get those removed. Now underneath the vehicle, we're going to have some fasteners that we need to remove along this front edge. We're going to have a total of 10 7mm bolts, just like this. So now if you come right in front of our front tire, we're going to have a few more fasteners. We're going to have a total of 5 7mm that we're going to take out. And this will be the same on the other side as well. This little shield will come down and just set it to the side, just like that. Now if we come here to the front edge of our wheel well liner, we're going to have 4 T15 screws that we're going to take out. And the other side is set up the same way, so we'll repeat that process over there. So now we can go ahead and peel our fender liner back. Sometimes it makes it a little easier if you turn your tires one way or the other to kind of give you a little more room. So this kind of just peels out. Right here, where our fascia meets the fender, we're going to have one 7mm bolt that we'll take out. Now we can take off this front wheel well trim piece. Now before you do that, it's a good idea to take some painter's tape, kind of just put it around the edges here. That way we don't have to worry about accidentally scratching up our paint. But to get this off, what you're going to do is kind of pull down on it, as well as out. We'll kind of work it back and forth. We can release it from the tabs that's holding it in place. Once we get to about this point, that's more than enough room. And as you can see, these are the tabs that are holding it. So that's why when we pull down, the trim piece comes down off them. And then when we pull out, that's how we actually get it to release. Once we have this done, we're going to repeat that same process over on the other side. Now over here on the passenger side, in the wheel well area, when we peel our liner back, we're going to have a couple electrical connectors that we need to disconnect. The first one here, to remove it, you just push down on the center tab and pull down. The other one is going to be tucked a little bit closer to the center of the vehicle, right there. To take this one off, we're going to have a red tab, and you push that down, and then that'll allow you to push down on the center tab. And while you're pushing down on that center tab, you're able to put some downward pressure on it to disconnect it like that. So now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and start to peel our fascia off. We'll start with the corner, and that just kind of pops back. We can kind of carefully work it towards the center. When you're doing this, you don't want to pull it off really hard, because on the driver's side here, you may have some wiring, so keep that in mind before you completely release everything. In our case, we're all good. So we can just take this and set it off to the side somewhere safe. Now with our fascia out of the way, we can remove our ambient air temp sensor, which is right here. So to disconnect it, you kind of just pull back on this gray tab, like so, and then push down on it, and you're able to separate the two. Now at the top of our air dam, we're going to have 4 plastic fasteners that we're going to take off using a trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver. Will do the job too. Pry underneath them and pop them out. And on each side, we're going to have a push pin fastener, and we'll remove that as well. And on the bottom, we're going to have 2 more of these fasteners, 1 on each side. And once we get both of these removed, we're going to be able to take off our air dam and set it to the side. Now on this bottom portion here, once that's out of the way, we're going to have these little tabs on this piece of rubber. And so we're just going to pull the rubber down over the tabs like that. And we're going to have a total of 4 of those. Now on each side of our secondary grille, we're going to have a bracket that drops down, and we're going to need to cut it flush with the bottom of our bumper beam. So I went ahead and put a mark here where we need to cut. Now I'm going to use a Dremel tool to get this done. However, you could use a Sawzall or something like that will work too. And once both of your brackets are cut, you can simply just pull this off and set it to the side. Now here on our bumper beam, we're going to have 5 7mm screws that we're going to take out. 2 right here, 1 in the center, and 2 more on the other side. Now along the top here, we're going to have 4 more 7mm screws. Then we're going to be able to kind of pull this out of the way, and we're going to have an electrical connector kind of down here in this area that will disconnect. I'm kind of able to work this back. And if you look on the inside edge here behind the grill, there's going to be more of these little tabs here with the pieces of rubber on them. And so we'll kind of just work that rubber over those tabs. That way we can pull this away. So now if we come down here, here's our electrical connector. So we'll pull down on the red tab in the center. And then push down, we're able to disconnect it. We're also going to disconnect the electrical connector to this box here. There actually is a black tab around. You kind of grab the edges and pull it back. And then we can push down, separate it, and to get this wiring off the bracket, just take a trim tool and pry up on it. We have 2 of them. We can pull this out, just set it to the side. We're able to completely remove this portion of the grill and set it to the side. On each end of our bumper core, we're going to have a wiring push pin that we need to take off, as well as this plastic cover here. So to get this one off, again, we'll take our trim tool, and work behind it, separate that wire loom from it, like that. And then to get this push pin fastener, just pry under the head of it. Under the base. We're going to have a little clip here on the side. You can just pull that back with your finger. You're able to work it off. I'll just do the same thing on the other side. Now the wiring that runs along our bumper beam, it will be connected to it by these little clips. So we'll separate the two. So I'm just going to use a pair of needle nose pliers, kind of pinch those ends, and then that'll just pull right through. And I'll do that for all the remaining clips that's attaching the wiring to the bumper beam. Now we're actually going to remove our bumper beam. And on each end of it, it's going to be held in place with 4 13mm bolts. Now what I like to do when I take these out is take one of them out and then just put it back in a few threads to keep it hand tight. That way the bumper beam will kind of hold itself up. We don't have to worry about it falling. So I'll run that one all the way out and just work it in a few threads. And the rest of them we'll just take completely out. Now we're able to kind of support the beam. Take out those last 2 bolts. Once we have it removed, we just set it to the side. Now we need to separate our lower air dam from the top portion. So we're going to have 3 fasteners on each side. One right here. We use our trim tool. And pry that out. And then these 2 down here. Get underneath them and pry them out. Once you have both sides disconnected, we're able to kind of pull it out. And for the time being, I'll just leave it like this. On each side of our frame rail, if we have any electrical connectors, we're going to need to remove those. That way we have room for our base plate. So on the driver's side, in our case, we have 2. So we'll just kind of pop those out. Just like that. Now on each side of the vehicle, we're going to have an outside bracket right here. We're going to need to take it off. This can be held in place by 3 bolts. For this one and this one, we're going to use an 11mm socket, and for the one up top facing that way, we'll use a 16. And once all 3 of our bolts are out, we can set this off to the side and repeat it on the other side. Now with an extra set of hands, we can take our base plate and slide it over our frame rails. You want to be sure that you don't pinch any of your wiring. Make sure to move that out of the way. We're going to first start with these 2 holes back here. And what we're going to do is take the larger bolt with the split lock washer and be sure to put Loctite, red Loctite on all the hardware from this point on that's going to attach our base plate to the vehicle. We'll take the larger one, put it in the top hole, and just get it hand tight. And then we're going to take a smaller bolt with the split lock washer and a flat washer, again some Loctite on it, and thread that into the bottom hole. We're just going to get each side started hand tight. That way the base plate will support itself while we work on getting it completely secured. Now what I went ahead and did was actually kind of hold our base plate up. And what I mean by that is the top edge of our base plate, we want that to be level with the top edge of this pinch weld here on the frame. So while I was kind of supporting it, I went ahead and just tightened down these bolts to hold it in place. And I did that on both sides. Now if we come over to the side of our base plate, we're going to have 2 holes here at the top. And we're going to use these as guides to drill a hole through our pinch weld. That way we can put some hardware in it. Now I'm going to use the drill bit recommended in the instructions to get that job done. However, I do recommend be conscious if there's any wiring behind it or anything. You don't want to accidentally drill into it. Now if we move down on the side of our base plate a little bit, we're going to have 2 more holes. And so we're going to use that same procedure that we use on the top to get those drilled out as well. So now what we can do with all of our holes drilled, we can put our hardware in, and it's going to be the same hardware combination for all of the holes on our side plate here. So we're going to have a bolt and a flat washer, and don't forget to put your red Loctite on all the hardware. What we're going to do is just line that up like so, and then we're going to take one of our tube spacers, put that in between the base plate and our pinch weld on the frame, run the bolt through it, out through the hole that we drilled. We're going to take a split lock washer, slide that over, followed by a nut, and we're just going to get it hand tight for now. And sometimes that gap can be a little tight to get your spacers in, so you might have to work it around or just try a different spacer. Might be just a little thinner. And do that same thing for these holes on the bottom. Now we're going to repeat that exact same process over on the other side as far as drilling your holes go and putting in all of our hardware combinations. Now once that's done, all of our hardware is in, then we can come back and tighten it all down. With all of our hardware tightened down, now we can come back with a torque wrench and torque it all to the specification found in our instructions. Now we can go ahead and take our bumper beam and get that reinstalled using the same hardware that we took out to remove it. So slide it into place, make sure you're not pinching any of your wiring, and then just go ahead and re-secure it. Now at this point, if you have other flat toe components you need to get installed, such as diode wiring or a braking system, now would be a great time to do that since we have all this room to work here in the front. If not, you'd simply follow the next step in the instructions to get everything wrapped up. And now we can reinstall our upper grille in the opposite order that we removed it. And don't forget to reinstall any electrical connectors that we disconnected. Now, since we're not going to be reinstalling our lower grille cover here, we are going to have to remove our ambient air temp sensor and relocate it. So to pop it out of here, there's going to be 3 tabs just like this, kind of going around, and you're just going to squeeze all 3 of those in together and pull it down. Now what we're going to do is plug that into one of these holes here in our rubber. So that'll simply just kind of push through there, and those tabs will help keep it in place. And just go ahead and plug it right back in. I went ahead and just set our fascia in place, popped our lower grille out. That way we could kind of hold it up and see where we need to cut to clear all of our items here. So I just held it in place and then just used a paint pen, put a couple marks here so we can cut everything out. So here's what our lower grille is going to look like once it's trimmed out to allow all of our components to come through. With our grille openings cut out, we can reinstall our front fascia. Now don't forget, if you disconnected anything electrical, to go ahead and get that plugged back in. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Direct Connect baseplate kit with removable arms on our 2017 Buick Envision.